welcome back to Tippy Travels.
Tippy's travelling. Hopefully.
This is part 3 of 4 of the roof rack build. And what are you showcasing us this time?
Making the roof rack mounting brackets. And there's not much more to say about it than just to watch the video. There's a lot of information in here. If you've got one of these vans, Ducato, Promaster, Boxer, then you'll know that they have a special little pin that sits up from the roof rack. And yeah, everyone seems to put all their weight onto this pin, but I read the book, it says you shouldn't do that. And so I had to make these very, very complicated brackets because I couldn't find them to buy them. So that's this episode. I hope you enjoy it. So as I'm sure many of you are aware, the Ducato is not the easiest thing to get a roof rack fixed up onto. But that's my job today. So here we have it. This is what the Ducato offers you in way of a fixing. This doesn't move, it doesn't undo, although on the other hand, the one that I just did down there, I managed to swivel it around, which probably wasn't a great move. Essentially, the weight, the loading part of this needs to be on the bits to the side of this pin, and the pin essentially just is there so that you can pull something down to then put the loading onto these two bits. I see a lot of people doing this whereby they just literally like get something wrapped around that and use the pin as the weight, like loading part. I'm going to bust my bum trying to actually make something that's actually going to work on here. And what I've devised, I think is going to work, is this. So I don't want any steel up here. Stainless steel would be okay. I just find it a little tough to work with. So I'm going to use aluminium. Essentially, this thing here is going to slot kind of from a cross-sectional point of view like that. It's going to kind of go in there and then sit underneath this lug like this. And then to the sides of this, I'm going to drill a couple of holes and have 2 bolts sticking out through it. And those bolts, as I put this in there, the bolts will stick up, and then I'll have a bigger piece to go over the whole lot and press down onto the edges. And what I will do is I can pull those 2 bolts, when I tighten up the nuts onto those, it'll actually pull this middle section up, pulling this up, and at the same time the pressure will then be on these flatter sections across here, which is what it's supposed to do. So I've got the deepest of joy in cutting this out. I'm not sure how to do it. Maybe loads of holes, I don't know. I actually don't know. I'm going to get in the workshop, just get some bits and pieces out and give it a go. But yeah, this is the first part, so let's get on with this.
Fall back just a little bit. Can you let me off? I wasn't ready for this ride. Fall back just a little bit more. Decision time ahead, but I swear by all the rules that we have set. But with you the words fall out of my
Alright, we have a little setup. So let me take you through the first part. So this is the piece that goes onto the little pins that stick up out of the roof. Let's just say this is the pin. So this then slots over like that. What I've then done is I've put a couple of riv nuts in here. And the idea of these riv nuts is when this is nicely positioned onto the van roof, we then put this over the top. Sorry, that way around. And that clamps down onto there. So this is how it looks. So this piece here is likely to be on the inside of the van, so you can't see it. So all you see is this side, which will be painted. Then these will drop down through the hole and then go into the riv nut, just to pull this down and to lift this piece up, thus pulling on the pin and applying pressure onto the actual load bearing plates on the van.
it's been a bit of a faff, I'm not going to lie. But I think this is the answer. Now, one thing I did do as I cocked up this a little bit, when I put the riv nuts in, I didn't put them wide enough apart. So when the pin thing goes in, it actually, the head of it's a lot wider, and so it collides between these two parts. So I'm going to remake these. I'm going to make 8 of these. I've then got 6 of the load bearing plates now cut, ready to go. I say cut, ready to go. They're cut to rough size. Need to then cut out this type section out of each of them. So it's about 10 mil up on that side, and then just, you know, through the rest of it there, as you can see, leaving this bit to touch the surface of the van roof like that. So once I then cut those, all of those, there are 8 in total. These are 150mm long. The 2 that go on the very front need to be longer because the roof fan, the max fan, is in the way. So we need to just extend the length of these load bearing plates so that they're just that bit further forward, so then the cross member can sit right across the front of the max fan and pick up their 2 loading points. And so, yeah, I'm now really excited about this because getting my head around how I was going to do it was all the ball ache. And actually doing it isn't going to be that much hard work. It's just a case of cracking on, cutting, drilling, polishing. And once I've got a set put on the van and it's working, I'm going to do another video and show you.
From that short time I remember, but it's a price that I pay. How you shot me down with fever. It is such a cliche. Hold me down, I'm slipping too far behind. Enemy lines, secret phone calls in the night time.
Okay, so the first one off my production line has worked out all right. There it is, nice and simple. Essentially, it's just a case of drilling out everything that you see on there. A little bit of work with Dremel, just to tidy up some of the edges. And then this nicely sits into there. And that's exactly as it should be, with the spacing between this like pinny thing that's sticking up. So that's that. Now I just got to go make another 7 of them because we've got 8 mounts on the roof. So yeah, cracking on.
If my friends ever heard me say, I wish I could run away with her. Book ourselves in a cheap hotel. The idea is so hard to sell because it just felt right. Still I grow every day. From that short time I remember, but it's a price that I pay. How you shot me down with fever. It is such a cliche. Hold me down, I'm slipping too far behind. Enemy lines, secret phone calls in the night time.
I'm ready to start painting, and I don't have a compressor, air gun, anything like that. I've never needed one before, so I didn't feel the need to go out and buy one now just to do this. And also I think when you're using that kind of stuff, the spray is quite fine and airborne, and you'd need a hell of a lot more than just the gun. You'd need probably some pretty decent breathing apparatus. I've got good masks and things, but I don't think they'd be good enough for that. And then also the likelihood is there'll be sort of residual fallout going everywhere. As in, when I say fallout, I mean airborne paint eventually settling somewhere. So I just didn't really want to mess around with all that. So I have gone for the usual rattle can spray paint. So I'm going in with a 3-stage approach. We've got, oh, kick the bucket. 3-stage approach. First of all, etch primer. So this is aluminium, and aluminium needs an etch primer to stick to it because of the oxide layer that resides on any surface of aluminium when it's been left out in the air for more than about a second and a half. It needs something to break down that oxide layer and then adhere to the metal. So that's what the etch primer is going to do. Secondly, we're going with some matte black Body Shop paint. This is all high coat stuff. I got it from My Car Spares online, I think it was, something like that. I'll put the link in the description. So this is matte black spray paint. And then finally, matte lacquer, a clear matte lacquer. And this is going to provide a tough-ish surface that is, let's call it semi-sacrificial. The last thing we want is anything scratching the paint off. So the idea is put a few coats of this on the very, very top, gives it a nice finish, but then on top of that, it's going to have an added layer of protection to stop it getting scratched up from trees and branches and whatever else that happens. I mean, it's not going to be 100% perfect, but it's going to be good enough. So there it is. 1, 2, 3. Finished my brackets, so now you can just see I've put a layer of neoprene on the bottom. That's the bit that sits on the van, and so now I'm just going to get these fixed up. Alright, that's done. All that happens on this now is the crossbar sits right on the top of there, and in between these two I'm just going to drill out a riv nut that goes into there, so then when the crossbar sits down there I drop a bolt straight through, and that essentially fixes that onto there, and that's basically it. All right, I hope that was informative and not too tedious. But for any of you out there that are actually considering making these, I felt it important to put all that information in there. And I know it's probably longer than what most people actually would want to see, but at least, you know, you're going to get the finished article, and you're going to be able to see exactly how you're going to do it by following my little guide. And actually, after all, that is why we're doing this. You know, we're not sort of like doing it for like self-promotion or anything like that. It's really just to give back to the world of YouTube, from where we have taken so much info from. So I really do hope that this video actually is useful for those out there.
And everybody's going to make their own brackets from now on.
Well, maybe, yeah. I
mean,
mean,
if even one person has followed what we've done. I took my idea from a bunch of videos, but then also just from getting up there and having a bit of a play and trying to work it out. And yeah, you can buy stuff, but all the stuff you can buy is not aluminium, and therefore it's potentially susceptible to rust. The brackets lay in the gutter, if you like, of the van's roof, and so obviously they're going to get absolutely soaked. And if you live by the sea, which being Britain, pretty much everyone lives by the sea at some point, level or another, it's going to rust inevitably, and then you're going to end up with puddles of rust on the top of your van that will start pouring down the van. So, and this is what we learned from our old van, wasn't it? Really, the non-converted van, just a builder's van. That was not a sightly.
No, the steel roof rack had some rust on it, just a small amount of rust, just on these little vertical columns. It was a rhino roof cage type thingy. And then it just literally bled rusty water down the side of the paintwork, and it just ate away at the paintwork. Even though I kept on top of it and washed it and buffed it and everything, it didn't matter. But getting that roof rack off was
too much of a nightmare. So, because everything had rusted, basically.
Cool.
Probably talked too much now, but it's a long video. I hope you've enjoyed it. And we shall be back for part 4.
Part 4.
Making the actual roof rack.
In aluminium, aluminum.
Getting it all painted and getting it mounted.
Till next time.
Indeed.
Bye.
Bye-bye.